Ah, the prow of my ship, Naulakha, truly is a jewel beyond price. It's just astounding how similar it was to when I was here so long ago. The Landmark Trust has done an exquisite job. It was this very desk in which I started to pen the Just So stories. Oh, but that was after many times of reciting them to my children there in the loggia, the joy of the house. I believe that every line of verse or prose should be mouthed till the tongue has made all smooth, and memory after many recitals has mechanically skipped the grosser superfluities. Then it's ready for the page. A good illustration of that is in the Just So stories, where the elephant's child asks ever so many questions. You might say that he was full of insatiable curiosity. But I happen to say that he was full of satiable courteosity. And the camel, who was exceedingly lazy, is described as being excruciating idle. So that's the way I wrote it down. Made it a lot more fun. Literary critics of the day didn't approve sometimes of my liberal play with the language. I remember before coming here in 1889, I received a manuscript returned with the most terse, rude rejection notice a writer can imagine. It just said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Kipling, but you just don't know how to use the English language." Well, perhaps could be argued that English wasn't my first language, but I think I did master it well enough to go on to write all these volumes you see on the shelf here and to become one of the most quoted authors of the English language, perhaps second only to Mr. Shakespeare. But I did have fun playing with words and making them, especially in the verse and the prose, to make them almost musical. The elephant's child goes on a grand journey to the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River. It's fun to listen to it. It's even more fun to say. If you've never had the pleasure of saying that line, why don't you try it with me? The great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River. My best beloved liked it that way. She's the one I created these stories for. There are many references still in the text because I kept talking to her while I told these stories, so that's the way I wrote them down. Josephine was born just down the road here while this house was being built. My firstborn, my little American. She inspired me. She was my muse for those stories, and I like to think that people who have read them since and are still reading that line about my best beloved are indeed telling it to their best beloved. And so the essence of the sentiment that was inspired these creations is still living on for many, many generations of readers and listeners. What more could a writer ask for?